There comes a point in our lives when we grow tired of repeating the same mistakes, tired of falling into the same tropes, tired of disappointing ourselves. Bad habits aren't just actions, they're patterns that quietly steal our peace, drain our energy, and distance us from who we truly are meant to be. They start small, just one choice, one slip, but over time, they take root so deeply that we begin to mistake them for a part of our identity. But remember this, you are not your habits. You were not created to be chained by your impulses, your weaknesses, or your past. You were created to rise above. Breaking a bad habit isn't about instant perfection. It's about sincere transformation. It begins in the heart. You must first acknowledge that you are struggling, not because you are weak, but because you are human. Change starts with humility, the courage to say, I need help. From there, you turn to the source of strength, not relying solely on your willpower, but on divine power. Because when your soul connects to its creator, it finds a reason greater than the habit itself. You stop fighting just the surface action and begin healing the root cause. The emptiness, the stress, the lack of purpose that fuels the behavior. True change happens when we replace what's harmful with what's healing. Don't just try to remove a bad habit, replace it with something meaningful. If your hands are busy with goodness, they won't have time to cling to destruction. If your heart is full of light, darkness won't find a home. Be patient with yourself. Every day that you resist is a victory. Every small step you take is a seed of growth. Even when you fall, rise again. Because success is not the absence of struggle. It is the refusal to give up in the face of it. There is a quiet but powerful moment that begins every true transformation. The moment you finally acknowledge and accept your struggle. This step is often the hardest, not because it requires physical effort, but because it demands honesty. It requires you to face yourself without excuses, without denial, without the comforting lies that say, it's not that bad, or I can stop whenever I want. To acknowledge a bad habit means to look directly at the truth you've been avoiding, to stop running from the parts of yourself that make you uncomfortable. Acceptance is not weakness, it's courage. It's the decision to stop pretending that everything is fine and start confronting what needs to change. Most of the time, we resist this stage because it feels painful to admit that we are flawed, that we've fallen short, that we've allowed something destructive to take hold in our lives. But healing never begins with denial. Denial only keeps us trapped. Think of it like a wound. You cannot heal what you refuse to see. Covering it, ignoring it, or pretending it doesn't exist doesn't make it go away. It festers in silence until it demands your attention. Every bad habit that remains unacknowledged continues to grow in the dark corners of your life. It affects your thoughts, your faith, your relationships, and even your sense of self-worth. Acknowledging your bad habit means naming it, bringing it into the loop. It might be a habit of procrastination, anger, gossip, addiction, or neglecting your spiritual duties. Whatever it is, you begin by saying, yes, this is part of my reality right now. That simple confession carries immense power. Because once you name it, it loses its secret strength over you. What once controlled you from the shadows now becomes something you can face and eventually overcome. Acceptance doesn't mean resignation. It doesn't mean you are okay with staying the same. It means you have stopped lying to yourself about where you stand. It is the doorway to change, the point where self-deception ends and self-awareness begins. Many people confuse acceptance with defeat, but in truth, it is the very opposite. Acceptance is empowerment. It's saying, I am aware of my struggle, and now I can take steps toward healing. When you accept that there is a problem, you reclaim your power to change it. At the heart of acceptance lies humility, and humility is the soil where transformation grows. When you stop pretending that you are in full control, you open yourself to divine guidance. You begin to understand that the journey of self-improvement is not about ego. It's about surrender. It's about realizing that your strength alone might not be enough, but with the help of the one who created you, nothing is impossible. The moment you sincerely say, "I can't do this alone," you will find that unseen help begins to move in your favor. Doors for strength returns. Hope awakens. This process also requires self-compassion. Often, people approach their bad habits with guilt and self-hatred. They beat themselves up for their failures, thinking that shame will push them to change. But shame paralyzes, it doesn't heal. You cannot build something beautiful out of self-loathing. You must treat yourself with the same mercy that you seek from God. You are not defined by your mistakes. You are defined by your willingness to rise from them. Acceptance then becomes an act of love. It's telling yourself, "I see where I am, I acknowledge it fully, but I still choose to move forward." This step also teaches you mindfulness. By acknowledging your bad habits, you become aware of the triggers, thoughts, and emotions that lead to them. You start noticing when and why they appear. Maybe it's boredom, stress, loneliness, or lack of spiritual nourish. This awareness gives you a chance to pause and make a different choice. You begin to understand that every bad habit is not just a random act, it's a message. It's pointing to something deeper that needs attention. And when you start listening to that message instead of running from it, you begin to heal from the inside out. Acknowledgement and acceptance also help you break free from comparison. Many people delay their growth because they compare themselves to others who seem stronger, more disciplined, or spiritually elevated. But every soul is on a unique journey. Your battle might look different from someone else's, but it is equally meaning. When you accept your reality, you stop competing and start growing. You realize that your worth doesn't diminish because you struggle. Struggle is a sign that you are alive, aware, and still trying. And that is something deeply noble. So begin here, gently but honestly. Sit with yourself and reflect. What habits are pulling you away from peace, from purpose, from your Creator? What are you holding on to that you know is hurting you? Don't rush to fix it right away. First, see it clearly. Feel the discomfort of truth, because that discomfort is the beginning of growth. In that moment of acknowledgement, you'll find a strange peace, as if a heavy weight has been lifted, because the hardest part was never breaking the habit. It was admitting that it had power over you. Once you do that, you've already taken the first and most important step toward freedom. Every bad habit is like a symptom, not the disease itself. It's the visible sign of something deeper, a need, a wound, an emptiness that hasn't been healed. When you try to stop a bad habit without understanding its root cause, it's like cutting the leaves of a weed and leaving the roots untouched. It may disappear for a while, but it always grew. Real change begins when you dig deeper, when you stop fighting the surface and start asking, why do I do this? That question is powerful. It transforms your struggle from a war against yourself into a journey of self-awareness. Every human being is driven by needs. The need for love, safety, connection, control, and purpose. When those needs aren't met in healthy ways, we unconsciously reach for tricks. That's where bad habits are born. Someone who feels unseen may develop the habit of constantly seeking validation. Someone who feels overwhelmed may escape into endless scrolling, food, or entertainment. Someone who feels unworthy may give up easily or fall into laziness, not because they don't care, but because deep, they believe their effort won't matter. What looks like a lack of discipline is often a cry for healing. If you want to stop your bad habit, don't just ask, how can I stop doing this? Ask instead, what pain is this habit trying to numb? What need am I trying to fill? It takes courage to sit with those questions because they bring uncomfortable answers. Sometimes the root isn't just emotional. It's spiritual. Sometimes it's a disconnection from your purpose, from your creator, from your inner peace. You may be trying to fill a spiritual void with material distractions. You may be trying to silence anxiety with noise instead of addressing what's causing it. The habit, then, becomes a shield, a temporary comfort that keeps you from feeling the real wound. But when you begin to face that wound with compassion and honesty, the power of the habit starts to weaken. You realize it's not the habit you crave, it's relief. And relief can come in a better, purer form. That realization changes everything. Instead of fighting against yourself, you start to work acts with yourself. You begin to care for the parts of you that are hurting instead of punishing them. That shift from self-judgment to self-understanding is one of the most profound steps in breaking free. This process requires stillness. Most of us are so busy reacting to life that we rarely stop to reflect. But you cannot uncover the root cause of your habit if you're constantly distracted. You need silence, solitude, and sincerity. Take time to notice your patterns. When does the habit appear most strongly? What triggers it? Stress, boredom, sadness? What thoughts run through your mind before you fall into it? These small observations reveal where the real problem lies. And once you can see the pattern, you can begin to rewrite it. Sometimes, the root cause isn't a single event or emotion. It's a lifelong pattern. Perhaps you grew up believing you were none, and now you chase perfection or escape failure through avoidance. Perhaps you were taught to hide your emotions, and now you soothe them in secret through habits that bring guilt instead of healing. Recognizing these patterns doesn't mean blaming your past. It means understanding how it shaped your present. Awareness gives you the power to choose differently. And this awareness is not possible without spiritual reflection. Because no matter how much psychology or self-help there are some voids that only spiritual connection can fill. When your heart feels empty, it's often not because you lack entertainment, success, or people. It's because you lack remembrance. You were created with a soul that yearns for meaning, for closeness to its source. Many bad habits are simply the soul's way of crying out for that connection. You may not realize it, but the same restlessness that pushes you toward a harmful pattern is the same energy that, if redirected, can push you toward growth and worship. The same longing that drives you to escape can be transformed into longing for peace. And peace comes when you return to the one who made you. To seek the root cause is also to take responsibility. It's easy to blame circumstances, people, or stress for our actions, but growth begins when we stop pointing outward and start looking inward. You can't change what you refuse to own. Taking ownership doesn't mean blaming yourself. It means claiming your power to change. Once you know why you do so, you stop being a prisoner to it. You begin to act with intention instead of reaction. When you finally uncover the root cause of your bad habit, something beautiful happens. Compassion replaces shame. You begin to see that your habit wasn't born out of evil, but out of pain. You can now replace it, not through force, but through healing. If your bad habit came from loneliness, fill it with connection, with God, with prayer, with community. If it came from stress, fill it with mindfulness, patience, and trust. If it came from emptiness, fill it with purpose. The key isn't to fight against the darkness, but to bring in light. This journey takes time. The roots of a habit don't disappear overnight. But every moment of awareness, every act of reflection, every sincere prayer pulls you closer to freedom. Be patient with yourself. Healing isn't linear. Some days will feel like progress, others like relapse. But even on the hard days, remember, you are no longer blind to your struggle. You are now awake. And awakening is the beginning of liberation. When people decide to change, their first instinct is often to remove the bad habit completely, to stop doing what they know is wrong or harmful. They think that if they can just cut it out of their life, everything will be fine. But that approach rarely works for long. You can't simply erase a habit, you have to replace it. The human mind and heart cannot function in a vacuum. If you remove something without putting anything meaningful in its place, the emptiness it leaves behind will eventually pull you back into the same cycle. You can't overcome darkness by fighting it directly. You overcome it by bringing in light. When you remove a bad habit, you create a space within yourself. That space needs to be filled with something stronger, something purer, something that gives you a sense of fulfillment. Because every bad habit you hold on to is fulfilling a need. Maybe it gave you comfort, distraction, or relief. Maybe it offered a false sense of control when everything else felt uncertain. The habit might have been harmful, but it served a purpose. So, if you take it away and don't fill that void with something good, your mind and heart will go searching for that same comfort again, and most likely in the same wrong places. For example, if you're trying to stop wasting time online, it's not enough to just delete the app or turn off your phone. You have to find a better way to fill that time, something that feeds your soul instead of draining it. Read, reflect, walk, pray, or create something beautiful. Replace the empty scrolling with meaningful action. If you're trying to stop gossiping, replace it with silence or speaking words that heal. If you're trying to stop reacting in anger, replace that reaction with a pause, a deep breath, or a prayer. The goal isn't just to remove what's bad, it's to build what's good in its place. This principle applies to every part of life. Nature itself teaches this truth. When a tree dies and its roots are left in the soil, new life grows around it. The old gives way to the new. In the same way, when you let go of a harmful pattern, don't leave the space empty. Plant something beautiful there. Fill your mind with beneficial knowledge, your time with acts of service, your heart with gratitude and remembrance. You can't just close one door. You have to open another that leads to love. Replacing a bad habit also means reprogramming your focus. Every habit has energy behind it, attention, desire, and repetition. If you simply suppress those energies, they'll find another outlet. But if you redirect them, they become a source of strength. The same determination you once used to continue your bad habit can now be used to build a good one. The same passion that once pulled you away from peace can now pull you closer to it. It's not about changing who you are, it's about redirecting your energy toward what nourishes your soul instead of what drains it. This process also requires intentionality. You must be mindful of your environment and choices. If you want to stop a certain habit, make it difficult to fall back into it and make the alternative easy. For instance, if your bad habit thrives in isolation, seek community. If it grows in idleness, keep yourself occupied with meaningful routines. Structure your day in a way that naturally guides you toward better behavior. Change doesn't happen by force. It happens by design. It's also important to understand that replacing a habit isn't about perfection, it's about progress. There will be times when you slip, when the old pattern tries to creep back in. Don't see that as failure. See it as a reminder of what still needs strengthening. Every time you catch yourself and make a better choice, you are rewiring your mind, retraining your soul. It takes repetition to build a new path, just as it took repetition to build the old one. Be patient with yourself. Small, consistent efforts create lasting change. And deeper than all of this lies a spiritual truth. You can't replace a bad habit without replacing the attachment of your heart. Often, bad habits become idols in disguise. They occupy the space in our hearts that should belong to our Creator. When you fill that space with remembrance, with purpose, with sincere love for what is good, The false attachments naturally lose their grip. You stop craving what harms you because your soul has tasted something better. When your heart is busy remembering, there's no room for distraction. When your soul is filled with meaning, temptation loses its appeal. So, when you decide to change, don't just think of what you need to stop. Think of what you need to start. Don't just take away, build, plant, create, nurture. Replace distraction with devotion, resentment with gratitude, indulgence with self-control, emptiness with faith. Every time you remove something harmful and replace it with something pure, you are rebuilding yourself. You are not losing anything. You are exchanging something temporary for something eternal. Transformation doesn't happen in the absence of struggle. It happens in the act of substitution, in the quiet, daily choice to feed the light instead of the darkness. With each replacement, you're not only breaking a habit, you're shaping a new identity. You're proving to yourself that growth isn't about erasing who you were. It's about becoming who you were always meant to be. There will come a point in your journey of change when you realize that your willpower alone isn't enough. You'll try to resist the bad habit. You'll make plans, set goals, discipline yourself, and yet, somehow you'll still fall back into the same pattern. It's not because you're weak, it's because you're human. The human heart wasn't designed to be sustained by its own strength. It was designed to draw strength from the one who created it. True transformation doesn't happen through mere effort. It happens when effort is connected to divine power. You can only break free from what enslaves you when you lean on the one who sets you free. When you rely solely on yourself, change becomes exhausting. You fight the same battles, repeat the same mistakes, and carry the same guilt. But when you surrender that struggle to your Creator, everything shifts. Surrender doesn't mean giving up. It means acknowledging that you cannot do it alone. It means understanding that your greatest strength lies in humility. The moment you admit, I am struggling and I need your help, is the moment you open the door for divine assistance. There's a quiet beauty in that surrender. It's not defeat. It's liberation. Because you are no longer fighting with your limited power, you are aligning with infinite strength. Every heart that tries to overcome sin or bad habits without spiritual grounding eventually grows weary. The truth is, your soul cannot heal without the source of healing. You can try every method, every plan, and every strudu, but unless your heart reconnects to its Creator, the transformation will remain incomplete. This is because every bad habit, at its root, reflects a form of spiritual disconnection. It's a way of seeking comfort, peace, or escape outside the remembrance of goats. But the heart will never find peace anywhere else. The moment you turn back to Him, you begin to feel the emptiness that the habit could never satisfy. When you connect to divine strength, you begin to see your struggle differently. You stop seeing it as a punishment and start seeing it as a test. A chance to grow closer to the one who never leaves. Every moment of weakness becomes a reminder to return, to seek forgiveness, to rebuild your spiritual bond. You realize that even your failures can be a form of mercy because they push you toward humility. They remind you that you need Him. The Prophet Zero once said, all the children of Adam are sinners, but the best of sinners are those who repent. This means that falling is not the end of your story. It's part of your journey back to Him. Prayer becomes your anchor in this process. When you feel the pull of a bad habit, pause and pray, not just with your words, but with your heart. Ask for strength, guidance, and forgiveness. Speak to your Creator as someone who understands you completely, because He does. You don't need to be perfect to talk to Him. You just need to be sincere. Tell Him what you fear, what you crave, what you struggle with. When you pour your heart out in prayer, you're not just asking for help, you're healing through connection. Every time you remember Him, The chains that bind you begin to loosen. Dhikr, the remembrance of Allah, is another key to divine strength. The heart is like a vessel. It will always be filled with something. If you don't fill it with remembrance, it will fill itself with distractions. Constant remembrance protects your mind from wandering and your heart from falling. It builds a shield between you and temptation. When you keep your heart alive with His name, your soul becomes too busy with light to entertain darkness. But divine strength also manifests in patience. Sometimes the help you ask for doesn't come instantly. You may still struggle, still fall, still feel weak. That doesn't mean your prayers aren't being answered. It means you are being trained. Every struggle builds spiritual muscle. Every moment you resist, even if you fall again, strengthens your resolve. Allah doesn't expect perfection. He expects effort. He sees every time you try, every tear you shed, every whisper of repentance that escapes your heart. None of it is wasted. To connect with divine strength is to live with awareness that you are never alone. Even in your darkest moment, even when you feel furthest from Him, He is closer to you than your own heartbeat. You may think you are searching for Him, but in truth, it is He who is calling you back. The fact that you want to change, that you are even reading or reflecting on this, is a sign that He has already extended His mercy toward you. When divine strength fills your heart, what once felt impossible begins to feel attainable. You start to see small victories, a day without giving in, a moment of peace where there used to be restlessness, a quiet faith where there used to be fear. These are not causes to be fear. They are signs of unseen help. You realize that the journey of self-purification is not about becoming flawless, but about becoming faithful, turning to Him again and again and again, no matter how many times you fall. At its core, connecting to divine strength is about trust. Trust that the one who created your heart can heal it. Trust that every struggle you face has meaning. Trust that no effort made for His sake is ever lost. When you truly rely on Him, the impossible begins to unfold. You begin to walk lighter, breathe easier, and see hope where you once saw despair. Because divine strength doesn't just change your habits, it transforms your heart. And when the heart changes, everything else follows. One of the most overlooked truths about transformation is that it takes time. We live in a world that worships, where everything is instant, messages, results, gratification. But the soul doesn't grow in haste. It unfolds slowly through consistency and patience. Real change doesn't come from one burst of motivation. It comes from steady effort, even when no one sees it. Breaking a bad habit or building a good one is not a one-time decision. It's a daily commitment. It's the decision to keep showing up even when it feels like nothing is changing. Consistency is what turns desire into discipline. Everyone feels motivated at the start. In those first moments, the heart is full of hope and energy. But motivation fades, it always does. What remains is discipline. The quiet, determined choice to do what is right, even when it's hard. It's easy to make promises when you feel inspired. The real test is to keep those promises when you feel tired, distracted, or discouraged. This is where patience becomes your greatest ally. Because patience doesn't just mean waiting, it means enduring with purpose. It's the art of continuing even when the results haven't yet appeared. Imagine a seed planted in the soil. You water it day after day, but for a long time you see nothing. Beneath the surface, though, the seed is breaking open, sending roots deep into the ground. The growth is invisible, but it's happening. One day, a small green shoot appears, fragile but alive. That's how change works. The days when you feel like your effort isn't working are often the days when your soul is growing the most. The unseen roots of patience are forming beneath the surface, giving you the strength to rise. Too often people give up too. They start strong but lose hope when they don't see immediate progress. They forget that transformation isn't measured in days or weeks. It's measured in consistency over time. Every time you resist a bad habit, even once, you are weakening its grip. Every time you choose patience over impulse, silence over anger, prayer over distraction, you are reprogramming your heart. It might not feel like much in the moment, but those small victories build up quietly until one day, the habit that once controlled you no longer does. That is the fruit of consistency. Patience also means accepting setbacks without despair. No one changes in a straight line. There will be days when you fall, days when the old habit returns, days when you feel like you failed completely. But those moments don't erase your progress. They're part of it. Falling is not the opposite of growth. Giving up is. Each time you fall and rise again, you become stronger. You learn humility, you learn endurance, and you learn compassion for yourself and others. It's not about never slipping. It's about never stopping. When you practice patience, you also learn to trust the process. You stop rushing your healing. You understand that growth happens in its own time, not yours. Sometimes, the delay itself is divine wisdom. Maybe the struggle is teaching you something you couldn't learn if change were instant. Maybe it's building in you the resilience and depth that easy victories never could. Every stage of patience refines your soul. It teaches you surrender, reliance, and gratitude. You begin to realize that the journey itself is a gift. Consistency is also a form of sincerity. Anyone can make a promise in a moment of emotion, but only sincerity keeps showing up when the emotion fades. Every time you stay consistent, you're proving your intention, not to the world, but to yourself and to your Creator. When you pray regularly, even when you don't feel spiritual, when you keep trying to quit a habit, even after failing repeatedly, when you keep, even when it hurts, that's sincerity, and sincerity never goes unrewarded. Spiritually, patience and consistency are acts of faith. They say, if I trust that my effort matters, even if I don't see the result yet. And this trust is powerful. In the Quran, God reminds us that He does not let the effort of any soul go to waste. Every sincere attempt, every silent struggle, every tear shed in frustration is seen. You may not notice the change immediately, but He does. And sometimes, what feels like slow progress is actually perfect timing. There's also beauty in small, consistent acts. The Prophet 6 said that the most beloved deeds to God are those that are small but consistent. Why? Because small acts done sincerely build character. They shape the heart quietly but powerfully. When you start small, 5 minutes of reflection a day, 1 act of kindness, 1 step towards self-control, you're building habits that last. Grand efforts burn bright but fade fast. Small steps, taken faithfully, lead to real transformation. So, don't rush your journey. Be patient with your process. Some habits took years to form. They won't disappear overnight. But every day you choose growth over comfort. Every time you rise after falling, you are becoming someone new. Even if you don't see the results yet, know that your effort is reshaping your soul in ways you can't yet see. Change doesn't always make noise. Sometimes it's silent, steady, sacred. Keep walking even when progress feels invisible. Keep trusting even when your heart feels weary. Because the promise is real. Those who are patient and consistent will see the fruit of their effort. Maybe not immediately, but certainly. One day, you'll look back and realize that every small act of persistence, every prayer made through tears, every quiet moment of endurance was not wasted. It was building you, slowly, beautifully, into the person you were always meant to become. Every soul is influenced by its surroundings. The people you interact with, the words you listen to, the content you consume, all of these things quietly shape your inner world. Just as a plant bends towards sunlight, the heart bends toward whatever environment it lives in. If you surround yourself with negativity, gossip, distraction, and darkness, You cannot expect your soul to bloom in peace. But if you surround yourself with light, with goodness, wisdom, and faith, your heart will naturally incline toward growth and healing. The company you keep, both physically and spiritually, determines the direction of your soul. Surrounding yourself with light begins with choosing what you allow into your heart. Everything you see, hear, and engage with leaves an imprint on your inner being. If you constantly expose yourself to things that dull your conscience, content that glorifies what's meaningless or sinful, then the light within you begins to fade, little by little, without you even noticing. Darkness doesn't always enter with force. Sometimes it slips in quietly, disguised as entertainment, distraction, or convenience. Protecting your heart means being mindful of what you consume. Ask yourself often, does this bring me closer to peace or pull me further from it? When you fill your life with what reminds you of your purpose, your light grows stronger and bad habits lose their hold. But surrounding yourself with light isn't only about avoiding the harmful. It's about actively seeking what uplifts you. Light is found in the words of truth, in sincere prayer, in beautiful reminders, in the company of good people. Spend time with those who inspire you to become better, who remind you of God not through judgment, but through their kindness and humility. The Prophet Zurzu said that a person is upon the religion of their closest companion, so we must be careful who we choose to work with. True friends are those who strengthen your faith, not those who weaken it. They don't just share your laughter, they share your growth. They call you back when you drift. They comfort you when you fall, and they celebrate your efforts to rise again. Such companionship is light. It guides without burning, supports without controlling, and uplifts without pride. Light can also be found in solitude. There are moments when you must step away from the noise of the world to reconnect with your own soul. In silence, you begin to hear what your heart has been trying to say. When you spend time in reflection, in nature, or in quiet remembrance, you give your heart space to breathe again. The world often pulls us in 1,000 directions, leaving us spiritually drained. But when you choose to pause, even for a few moments each day, and sit with your Creator in sincerity, you are surrounding yourself with the purest light of all. That stillness becomes your shield against chaos. It strengthens you from within, so that even when you step back into the world, you carry that peace with you. Another way to bring light into your surroundings is through gratitude. Gratitude is a form of light that transforms how you see everything. When you start noticing the blessings around you, the air you breathe, the loved ones you have, the prayers that were answered in ways you didn't expect, you begin to see life differently. Gratitude softens the heart and shifts the focus from what is missing to what is present. It's hard for darkness to stay in a heart that's busy thanking its creator. Gratitude reminds you that even in moments of struggle, there is light hidden somewhere waiting to be found. Your environment also extends to what you create for yourself, your home, your workspace, your habits. Surround yourself with physical reminders of peace. Keep verses, quotes, or objects that uplift your spirit. Let your environment be a reflection of the calm and clarity you wish to nurture within. When your surroundings are filled with reminders of faith and purpose, they act as gentle nudges back to the path of light when life tries to pull you away. Most importantly, surrounding yourself with light means becoming a source of light for others. When you speak kindly, when you forgive easily, when you help quietly, you spread light in a world that desperately needs it. You don't have to be perfect to inspire others. You just have to be sincere. Every act of goodness, no matter how small, adds brightness to your surroundings. And when you make it a habit to radiate kindness, your own heart shines too. Because the more light you give, the more light you receive. But remember, light and darkness cannot coexist in the same space. You have to make a conscious choice every day. What will I let into my life today? What will I allow to influence my thoughts and emotions? The choice isn't always dramatic. It's often in the small, daily moment. Choosing a book of wisdom over meaningless scrolling, a prayer over an argument, forgiveness over bitterness. These are the quiet victories that fill your life with light. When you surround yourself with light, you begin to see life differently. Problems no longer feel like punishments but lessons. Pain no longer feels like emptiness but purification. You find peace even when life isn't perfect, because you've built your world around truth, sincerity, and remembrance. That's the power of living in light. It doesn't remove the darkness around you, but it makes sure it never enters your heart. In the end, the kind of energy you allow around you becomes the energy you carry within. Choose carefully what and who you key. Choose what nourishes your soul, what reminds you of purpose, what draws you closer to peace. The light you seek isn't far. It's all around you, waiting for you to open your heart to it. And when you do, you'll find that you no longer have to chase happiness. They will naturally find you, because light always returns to the hearts that welcome it.